If you want to see more videos and interviews like this from influential people in tech, finance, and sports, subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the bell to be alerted. And go a step further and join the YouTube and membership area for early releases of videos like this. I'm out of here. Ha! Oh yeah, it's your boy Crypto Blood, and welcome to another Kicking It session. Today I've got a special guest coming on. He's actually from the company Radix DLT. We're going to talk to him about his company and what he's doing with this decentralized finance protocol. It's the first layer actually specifically built to serve DeFi, the first layer to do that, and I'm excited to talk to him about that here. Piers, what's going on, brother? How are you? Rage Against Machine. Listen, guys. It took Piers like an hour and a half. That's why we're late. I'm going to blame Piers on it. That's why we're late. It took him an hour and a half to pick his song, guys.
When someone says, what track do you want to play you in? You're like, Jesus, man. Like, I need half a day to think about that one.
Oh, man.
But great to be on here. Thank you very much for having me.
So he picked Rage Against Machine, Bomb Track. Why that song, Piers?
It's one of those tracks that have always given me a huge amount of energy, and it feels like fighting music. So I thought I'd play that before I come on.
You're not coming here to fight me, man. Where's the peace? Where's the love? Oh man!
When you call yourself Crypto Blood, man, that's what you're inviting. That's what you're inviting.
Well, people, if you don't know, I used to love Rage Against Machine. You know what I liked about Rage Against Machine? Because it had that hip-hop rap vibe, just with the rock, the punk rock. So I loved it, man. I loved it. I haven't listened to it in a long time. But again, welcome to the show, and glad to have you on. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Piers, and what is Radix? Let's talk about that after you give us a little bit of yourself, about yourself.
Sure. So I joined Radix in 2017. Radix has been going since sort of 2013. It was a project started by this guy called Dan Hughes, who's the founder and CTO of Radix. I joined after sort of leaving Y Combinator. I went through Y Combinator with this project that was building deal rooms for decentralized insurance, deal rooms for large insurance companies. And I sort of got really excited about the Radix technology through meeting Dan at some community events, and I was hooked, and I was like, man, I really want to get involved in this. He was like, okay, come on board. So he ended up buying Shawmatics, and I became part of the Radix team. Radix itself has got sort of a really interesting lineage. It started as a fundamental research into decentralized systems, specifically how do you build a decentralized ledger technology that is capable of serving 10 billion people, 20 billion people, 50 billion people. How do you build a system that can grow to accommodate the requirements while still staying decentralized and secure, and that's been a problem that's been plaguing the crypto system since Bitcoin was created. But then as the industry grew and expanded and matured, we realized that there was this very specific use case that had come to the fore as being the most important reason that programmable money is exciting, which is finance, and specifically decentralized finance. And so we took the decision to actually do some fundamental research in the things that were necessary to building DeFi easy, accessible, secure, and scalable. And like that takes more than just the scalability protocol itself. It also takes diving into the things that make DeFi exciting. There's things like composability, the ability for applications to be sort of brought together and have several applications all working together at the same time. Like examples of that, there's like Compound and Uniswap and synthetics and all those kind of like great applications on their own, but when they're combined together, suddenly you get this really powerful money Legos effects. Like, what are those, and how can we harness those in a better way at a protocol level? And also all of these problems that we have, like scalability is one of them, but security is another one of them, and the difficulty of building like secure decentralized finance applications. So all of these things sort of came together as like this wonderful concoction of stuff that we've been building and researching and proving for a very long time, and like fundamental ways of building layer one protocols that have like meshed with what makes DeFi exciting and special to create what Radix is today.
Yeah, no, that makes perfectly good sense. I think you really explained that pretty well. So if I'm a newcomer, I really don't know much about. I know a little bit about crypto. I may know about Bitcoin and some of the altcoins. Explain the different layers. So layer 0 or you know, at layer 1. Explain what layer 1 is versus, you know, the I guess you want to call it the main protocol of a blockchain. What is layer 1, and how are you guys the first layer 1 specifically built for DeFi in that aspect, with, you know, giving us understanding about layer 1 for those
layer 1's, yeah, it's sort of a technical term that the reason that it's sort of come out is because layer 1 protocol is the first layer of the stack. Like some people start from 0, some people start from 1. Right. But like what we mean is the first layer of the stack. So the protocol is the fundamental mathematical algorithm that is run by the computers that create the network. So layer 1 protocol in the internet is something like TCP/IP, and that's just how do the computers communicate to go from a single machine to multiple machines coordinating together. And so layer 1 for Bitcoin is just the Bitcoin protocol, and then layer 2 for Bitcoin it's things like the Lightning Network, which is a way of using the way that the protocol is running to then augment extra functionality on top. Now, at the moment, there's a lot of discussion between layer 1s and layer 2s. People are like, well, Ethereum, you know, we've got some problems with the Ethereum network, so let's look at some layer 2 solutions like Matic or like, you know, optimistic rollups and things like that, which is ways of augmenting the existing protocol layer to improve things like throughput or other functionality. And what we decided, or what we realized, is that you actually fundamentally, if you want to take on this like multiple trillion-dollar industry, which is finance, and make it into a anti-fragile, decentralized system that the world can rely on in the same way that they can the internet, you have to fundamentally rethink how the algorithm that runs underneath it, the fundamental layer 1 protocol of how the network of computers all talk to each other, is designed so that you can make decentralized finance applications work at the scale you need them to. It's basically going, Ethereum's great, but it's functionally not good enough for DeFi, and it's scalably not good enough for DeFi. And for the same reason that we had to move from Bitcoin to Ethereum, we have to move from Ethereum to Radix, because we've got all of these constraints. Like Ethereum isn't going anywhere, much like Bitcoin hasn't gone anywhere, and Ethereum's going to stay as this great ecosystem. But if we want to get really serious about building decentralized finance at a global scale, then you have to have a layer 1 protocol, a fundamental component to how the computers that are running the network all agree with each other, that allows you to serve the market that you're targeting. And that's essentially what Radix is. So you can think of it as like the next version of Ethereum, or the next version of a public ledger that you can program.
Yeah, and so you know, speaking of Ethereum and everything, you know, my concern with all of this, man, is regulation. So how has Radix positioned itself to be kind of resistant to any regulatory stuff that may come down? Is that an issue that you guys thought about, or is that not really something you really see yourself running into?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Like, I think that there is constantly this battle between regulation and technology, where regulation seeks to prevent harm, and technology seeks to create new products, and there's always this like friction between sort of the prevention of harm and the creation of new products. Fundamentally, when you build a protocol, you are not the runner, you're not the operator of the protocol. This isn't always true. Like, there are some examples of protocols where the operators very much are. builders of the protocol. A good example of this is Libra. Another example of this is, the Visa network or the MasterCard network. And then that does come a problem, because you suddenly have this element where the people who are responsible for building the platform are also the people responsible for controlling and running the platform. That's not true of things like the internet. It's not true that the people who create TCP/IP are therefore responsible for what the data packets that go across the internet are, and have any responsibility to control how or what those packets are used for. And the same way for a protocol manufacturer like ourselves, we are someone who is building technology that can fundamentally allow people to cooperate in a decentralized, permissionless fashion. But we are not in the position to actually control what happens on top of our ledger. Obviously, we do believe that it is important to protect individuals from harm, like scams or being sold things that they shouldn't fundamentally be sold because they don't understand them. Regulation serves a really important purpose in many jurisdictions for these things. So it's still important that the people who build on top of our platform are bearing in mind what they need to do from the point of view of regulation, which is true on any public ledger. Like any of the DeFi applications that are on Ethereum also have to bear that in mind when they are building and deploying, to make sure that they are working in a regulatory compliant manner. From the point of view of our platform, though, it is the anti-fragility and permissionless and sensitive resistance is all what you have to build into the protocol if you want it to be fundamentally anti-fragile. Again, exactly the same way as you build the internet. The internet protocol was designed around this concept of nuclear winters, what happens if entire continents were blown up. How would we make sure that the protocol itself was still able to find other paths so that the information can continue to flow? In exactly the same way as how you build a public ledger protocol, you want to think about ways in which you can make sure that the underlying ledger, the underlying principles of how the protocol works, can't be interrupted by anyone, or should be as anti-fragile as possible. So then regulation does become an action of going after the people who are perpetrating things that are against the law on top of the platform, rather than going after the platform creators themselves, because fundamentally they don't have control over what is happening on top of the platform.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So I do have a question for you. One may ask, well, Piers, why should, we invest the time and energy, meaning I should say you guys invest the time and energy in a platform or protocol like Radix. We see that Ethereum 2.0 is on the horizon. It may be around the corner. I think it's around the corner, meaning 2029. But I'm just trying to be, kind of on the other side of this whole thing. Right. Why put so much effort into doing something great like this when we have a scalable solution possibly coming in the near future?
I mean, first of all, it's not coming in the near future. I'm sorry to disabuse anyone who's like, Ethereum 2.0 is around the corner.
See, I told you guys, I've been saying this forever. I want to hear what Piers has to say about this.
It is not close. Holy crap. If anyone has actually taken the time to dive into Ethereum 2.0, you will realize quite how phenomenally complicated the system is versus Ethereum 1, right? And so everything about it is staged in sort of very small increments. So when we go from proof of work to proof of stake, which by the way was supposed to take 6 months for Ethereum, right? Ethereum went live and they were like, right, we're going to do proof of work for 6 months and then we're going to move to proof of stake. And
that's what people don't realize. They don't realize that Ethereum 2.0 has been in the workings for 5 years, 4 years, 5 years,
Well, it wasn't
right?
called Ethereum 2.0. Like proof of stake was expected, and it's taken us 5 years to move just to proof of stake, and that's only a small part of Ethereum 2.0. Ethereum 2.0 is also a very complicated array of a beacon chain, and then these like side chains that all have to be coordinated with each other, that have this like decentralization requirement of at least 1096 nodes that then exponentially increases as they increase the number of channels. And all of this stuff doesn't actually get us to scalability immediately, because the first move to proof of stake isn't looking like that's going to happen this year. That's the first step to Ethereum 2.0. It doesn't get us any more scalability. And then the next step, which is like implementing these channels but without being able to pass state between them, again, doesn't get us to any more scalability. It's just data. And like, so we're looking like 22, 2023, 2024, realistically speaking, before we get to the point that we have something for Ethereum that is scalable. But like, even worse than that, the way that Ethereum 2.0 is being implemented,
apps won't work, right?
It breaks DeFi. It breaks what makes DeFi special. It doesn't allow.
Okay, explain this part. I want to hear this.
So this is it's so technical and it's so in the weeds, but at the same time, it's so delicious. It's so delicious. You're just like, oh no,
right.
No.
Oh man.
So the thing that makes DeFi exciting for me, and like that is driving so much of the volume in DeFi right now, is this concept of composability, right? Like I can go from a loan in Compound to a trade on Uniswap to another loan on Aave, and then go back from Aave into Compound in one block, right? So I can do all of these things without having to wait for a confirmation time. And the reason I can do that is I can make a call to Compound, to Uniswap, to Aave, and back to Uniswap as a composed command on Ethereum, because everything is running on the same computers essentially, right? So this is what composability is: this ability to go like bring multiple applications together in a single call and say, I want to do all of these things, or I want them to fail, right? So I don't want to end up in a situation where I have traded on Uniswap but I didn't get the thing from Compound, or I've borrowed from Aave but I wasn't able to trade on Uniswap. The example that's always given on this is the hotel and ticket and train ticket example, which is like, I want to go somewhere, but I only want to go there if I can book a train and book a hotel. And I don't want to end up in a situation where I have the hotel and not the train, or the train and not the hotel. I want both to succeed. And if they don't both succeed, I want them both to fail. This is atomic composability. And it's the core of DeFi. And like, it's the core of DeFi, because this is how the DeFi, the people who are driving the most liquidity in DeFi are doing the arbitrage and things like that. That is how they're doing it. Because if I had to wait for several blocks to move assets from one application to another, by the time I've moved it, the opportunity may have disappeared, and I've taken the risk of acquiring that asset for that time. So this is what's making DeFi so cool. And then Ethereum 2.0 comes along and it breaks that fundamental thing. It basically says, well, no, if you want to take something out of an application, you want to pass it across to another chain, another side chain on the Ethereum 2.0 ledger. It's got to go from your chain, from your side chain to the beacon chain, and then to the other chain, and you have to wait like 7 to 10 confirmations for all of that to happen. And this means that massive amounts of liquidity suddenly dries up, massive amounts of trading activity dries up, because it doesn't make the whole, it grinds the whole system to a halt. So what people are going to do is they're going to move all of their DeFi applications to the same side chain, and as soon as they do that, you end up back at the square one again. You're at a unscalable protocol, because the scalability only comes from being able to split things up across multiple chains in Ethereum 2.0. So like, not only is Ethereum 2.0 hugely complicated, years and years away. Once we get there, it doesn't even solve DeFi in the first place. It creates more problems for DeFi. So it's just like, oh.
Okay, well here's my question then, Piers. That I heard you say, well, Ethereum's gonna be here. It's gonna be, what will be the use case for Ethereum? I see DeFi being bigger than even Bitcoin, and just its market capitalization the amount of funds that will be locked up in DeFi will be even bigger than Bitcoin at some point in the future. What's Ethereum's? We're not here to try to rag on Ethereum here, people. I'm just trying to help people understand, because the narrative they hear, I kind of see how the crypto media is what they're doing with this whole upgrade. They're dangling the carrot in front of people. Every other day is a new, this node, the testnet just released and everything's looking great. I just want to kind of know, like, what's the point of Ethereum then? If it can't even do what is needed, what's the point?
So I think it's going to go in a similar way in which Bitcoin did. Like, people were like, Bitcoin is going to be, it's a new digital cash.
Oh, for sure.
And
that narrative was definitely going around when I got into Bitcoin.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's digital gold. And it's like, it's not that cash wasn't right. It's just it didn't quite fit what it actually was functionally doing. Like, digital gold makes more sense. It isn't a fundamentally, like, I still think there are some Bitcoiners who have this narrative of, well, once Bitcoin gets big enough, then it's going to have stable value. And it's like, well, no, it's not, because that fundamentally misunderstands how sort of global economic monetary policy
you can't have stable value with something that is the finite. Right, a limited supply.
Finite counter-cyclical asset. Like, if it does end up being a finite counter-cyclical asset, it by definition isn't going to be stable. But that's sort of the thing that you want it to be. You want it to be a counter-cyclical asset, so you want it to go up when everything else goes down. That's great. That's
another thing, Piers, has been kind of a disappointment for me. I got into Bitcoin in 2013, so I kind of saw the ground roots of what it was supposed to be about, right? In 17, a lot of things changed. A lot of the hedge fund guys, institutional traders, got into Bitcoin, and they ended up making it sync with all of the other traditional asset classes. We have a very, very positive correlation with Bitcoin right now with the S&P 500. I just did a video the other day about that.
Sure. It's looking like it's separating at the right now, but you're right. Like, generally quite relatively synced. I think that it depends whether or not we're talking about macro or micro trends here, right? Like, from my point of view, like, if it is able to, if we're about to go into a massive global recession, which I don't see any other route other than a massive global recession, just from the amount of money that governments have been printing and the situation that COVID is causing for all economies, then you are going to see a flight of capital from everything, just because people are going to need the money. But for me, the test of Bitcoin is going to be, like, long term, whether or not it was a better place to keep the money than it was in the stock market, or it was in bonds or whatever. I think they're a long way from Bitcoin getting there, but the thing is the underlying narrative of it makes so much sense around this anti-fragility of a stable store of value, or of a safe haven store of value. So I think it's going to continue to be volatile for quite a while yet. And I think that, as you say, like, these hedge fund people getting in and normal companies getting in make it more cyclically synced. But, like, ultimately, I think the underpinning narrative of it will be and what it was created under, what the reasons it was created for will win through. But it's not going to be oh great, the stock market has crashed and Bitcoin hasn't. Like, they are both going to, because it's it's cash allocation. Like, that's just going to happen when people
it's a risk on asset.
It's a risk on assets.
It's not a risk on, and I had to. It literally took me 5 years to come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
You know.
So, so like Ethereum. Your question was Ethereum, right? Which is like, what's Ethereum going to be?
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting one. I think that there are going to be there's a strong ecosystem that has been built around Ethereum, and a lot of these, like what we saw in 2017, this explosion of coins, and in 2015 the explosion of protocols, is like once these things are set in motion, they don't sort of die. They stay around for very, very long times, even long after the team that's responsible for it has left. And that's sort of why what's special platforms in the first place. So I think that a lot of the existing DeFi infrastructure, existing DeFi ecosystem that exists today is going to continue to exist well into the future. I don't think it's all going to move off Ethereum. I just think that you're going to get to the point where you need better ways of doing things. So one of the things that Radix spent a long time building or working out how to build was, how can you make it easier to build applications that are less likely to have bugs and less likely to have security issues? Because, while DeFi has a lot of money in it, like paying $1 million for a security audit is insane. Like a DeFi application developer goes and builds some Solidity code and then has to pay like 3 times the amount of money that they paid to develop the code in man hours to a company to go and make sure that the application is secure. Like that's not a long-term sustainable thing. And like the very insecurity of how these applications are built and how they interact with each other on top of these ledgers, that's not a sustainable thing. So
real quick, I'm sorry to cut you out. So I'm sure you've heard about the new language that's been released with Ethereum that's focused more on the security aspect of it. I don't know if you have. I just thought I would throw that in there.
What's it called?
Man, good question. Can't remember right now. Oh, it's built on it was like a hybrid of Viper. Something else.
So isn't Viper just Python? Yeah, Viper's Python syntax.
Right.
Been around for a while though.
Yeah, but
I know that some people have tried to build with Viper and have ended up just transitioning back to Solidity. But it's sort of it's more than just the language.
It's called Phi. Fi, like for iron.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is interesting. But again, they're not, like you said, the issue is the actual protocol. So there's the bottleneck is, even if you have this better language for security and safety, it's just not, it's the bottleneck is the actual protocol.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple layers to this, because like there's the language, then there's the execution environment, and then there's the protocol. And like the language is one part of it, but it's not all of it. Like what Radix has done is this idea of programmable finite state machines create this concept called components, which basically is how programmers program in the normal world, which is, you don't go and build an application by going, file new and then program it from scratch. You go and find libraries and code snippets and things like that from other people that you bring into your code, and you use those as the building blocks that you then create the glue between to create the application that you want to. And on Radix, these components are like on ledger libraries that you can call and compose together, but they're fundamentally more secure than something built in Solidity, because they're these little finite state machines. So you got something that, like, let's say, understands what a continuous function market maker is, like Uniswap, or something that can create tokens, and these components are composed together to create decentralized finance applications on top of Radix, which means that coders are able to get to market much quicker with a more secure platform, with a more secure application than they were otherwise. But all of these things takes such a huge step to go right. Well, we need to make a protocol that works with this new programming paradigm, which works with this new way of building applications, and then you have the ability to build something that can move beyond what we already have in Solidity and in Ethereum. And so it's more than just going, oh, let's build more scalable applications. It's about how do we fundamentally make it easier for developers to get started and build applications on top of these decentralized ledgers, specifically for decentralized finance. And that's a much bigger task than just going, oh, we're going to take all of Ethereum's tooling for Solidity and like stick a new protocol underneath it.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I was watching Raoul Paul, Real Vision, the other night, and he made a great point about how, with the central banks coming out with their own digital dollars, right? That it's going to eliminate the traditional banks, the BofAs, the JP Morgans. If they issue their own currency, now we're back to everything is it eliminates the banks. So I think the stage is set, man, for DeFi to just literally explode like 1,000x from here easily. Tell us I want to know a little bit about your token and how that all plays into this ecosystem.
Yeah, the Radix token sale is ongoing. And this is sort of the opportunity to go and buy tokens before the mainnet goes live, and the token sort of does the two or three functions you would normally expect of a token. It's how you secure the network, so it's a proof of stake, so its ability to stake and earn staking rewards for doing that, and the ability to pay for the use of the network, be that transaction fees, or if you're going to deploy an application on top of it, then pay for the deployment of the application, or use an application, pay for the calling of the application. So very much how Ethereum is expected to function once they have their proof of stake up and running, from the point of view of how the token operates. I think that the most interesting sort of extra thing about how the token works is there's a couple of like twists to it. One is every time the token is used on the platform, the fees of the transaction, they get burnt. So there's this sort of like direct link between the use of the platform and how much of the supply is being removed. And then there's this secondary aspect, which is that the token itself doesn't have time-based unlocking. Instead, it has price-based unlocking, which means that as the token price sustains above a certain level for a certain period of time, then more tokens are unlocked, which means that we're basically trying to build this equilibrium between circulating supply and price, so to help ensure the security of the underlying security of the network. Because obviously, with a proof of stake network, the price of the token has a direct impact on the security of the network, and we think this is a really interesting way of sort of improving that beyond what we currently have, which is these time-based unlocking schedules, which can often end up meaning that there's no element of milestones that have been reached apart from some time has passed, which is a much less effective way, we think, of timing the unlocking of tokens.
Gotcha. So lastly, man, we talked about the benefits over Ethereum. What about other protocols that are in direct competition with you guys? How are you better than, let's say, an EOS or a Polkadot or whatever? Kind of give us your take on that. He's smiling, people.
I knew you were gonna say EOS. I was like, man, yeah. I don't have a huge amount of good to say about EOS. I think that it's fundamentally an interesting experiment, but I think that that there's not really any sort of real competition there. There's no developer ecosystem. There's no There's not really people building applications beyond those that were sort of paid out of the EOS development fund, which as soon as the money disappeared, the developers disappeared. It was very ineffective at building a community around its protocol, and I think that experiment is slowly going to die from here. Personal view, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Polkadot's done a really interesting job of attracting sort of key parts of the Ethereum ecosystem. I think like big part of that came from Gavin Wood's sort of very close proximity to the Ethereum protocol originally. Polkadot's really complicated as well, in different ways to Ethereum 2.0. But these concepts of parachains and like specific use subchains, like we're of the opinion that DeFi on its own is going to dwarf all other applications. And so going, oh, we're going to have a DeFi subchain. It's like, well, your subchains only do 1,000 transactions per second. So like, why is that going to get us any further than any of the other sort of medium scalability protocols like EOS that have been around for years? Like you're not actually bringing anything interesting to the game, and not only that, you're breaking these fundamental tenets of what makes applications interesting on top of public ledgers, which is their composability. Like I can't compose across Polkadot chains, at least not in a single block. I have to wait multiple transactions deep to be able to do that, which slows everything down and doesn't make it possible to build all of this interesting liquid financial applications. So yeah, like it's gone down the route that was obvious in 2017 but was the wrong route. Like the route is we've had three stages of scalability. The first stage of scalability was Bitcoin has transactional scalability problems, so we need new ledgers that can do higher throughput, and that's when you got like Dash, and you got all of these other ledgers that came after that or Litecoin, or like they're just we need more transactions, more transactions, people. And then Ethereum came along, and suddenly you could build applications. They were like, we need more scalability of user to application, right? So CryptoKitties has killed Ethereum. We need more scalability of user to application, and this is just the narrative that Polkadot has come from, which was user to application. But what DeFi is, it's application to application scalability, and none of the other protocols have actually designed around that, which is why, we like, sure, these are interesting paths to go if your only concern is, I want to make an application scalable as a sole concept, right? I care about users being able to access this application. But if you suddenly want, this application needs to talk to lots of other applications as part of how it functions, then none of the protocols that are coming to market today have thought about that apart from Radix, which is why we think it's most important for DeFi. But that's fundamentally the most important thing about Radix and why it's different from everything else.
Well, there you have it, guys. Definitely at this point, it's 2 days, 2 hours to the end of their sale. Go at least check out what they're doing. I mean, I think Piers has explained it great. I'm gonna have this guy back on. He's a lot of fun. Definitely check him out. I'll leave a link in the description below for all of his information, as well as Radix DLT.com. I'll leave that in the description as well. Any last words, Piers?
Well, I mean, apart from come check us out, there's also like, feel free to join us on Telegram, on our channel there, and we're also on Discord and on Twitter. And like, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to just jump in. The community is like super active, and we'll be very happy to answer any of your questions. You might catch me in there as well. So please do come check us out and ask any questions you might have.
I'm gonna have to get this guy on an off the chain live stream one evening, because he is definitely knowledgeable and he just gives it to you raw. I love those type of people. So again, pleasure having you on, Piers. Talk to you soon, brother.